All right, guys, here I am again. Today, I'm going to be talking about something, and I actually have a list of items here so I don't ramble. I'm trying to keep from doing that. I'm always reaching out to friends of mine, and even my family members are giving me advice on things I need to try to work on and stop from doing. And one was that I ramble, so I probably need a list of items so that I won't get off subject too much. Now, I can say that a lot of things that I do, a lot of times when I get to talking, certain subject matters are hit me and I go into a rabbit hole. I go deeper into that hole, but I'm going to try to stay on task today. So let me go ahead and start with my intro, and I'm still getting used to this. So you guys help me. All right. And here we go. So here are my list of items that I have. And once again, I don't know what's going on with my iPad. I may have to restart my computer and start it up again, only because it just keeps blanking out on me. So I have to keep going back and grabbing, capturing the screen, and it just becomes a problem. So these are the items that I want to talk about here. I want to talk about these items here. So I guess I'll make myself a little smaller here. I can grab myself. I can, so here, you kind of look at this right here. So we're going to talk about, and before I get started, let me just say this. If you're African American and you look at this right here, you may not like my take um, on some of these subject matters. It's not going to, you just may not like it. But this is research, and hey, good, bad, ugly. Please share, comment, and let me know what you think about it. But most African Americans this may hit you some kind of way when I get finished today. Also, white Americans, some of the things that I'm gonna say is probably gonna surprise you. Some of the things you probably didn't even know existed and why things are the way they are, especially in the African American community. But my subjects here today is going to be one is going to, hopefully I can check these off as I go. We're going to talk about the Davis-Bacon Act, which is the Minimum Wage Act. We can also talk about the destruction of trades and schools, especially the inner city schools. We have the welfare state that we can't talk about African Americans in construction without talking about how the welfare state and our economical, socio-economical situation has put us in a position to be where we are today. And we're going to go into the current state of black contractors. So there are certain items that I want to talk about that. We're kind of go into the lab on those things. So I'm just going to put this to the side, and I'm going to try to make sure I stay on task. I'm going to put it over here on my side. And we're going to start off with the Davis-Bacon Act. And I don't know if you guys ever heard of this, but this was an act. It was in 1931, and let me get my screen again here. But the Davis-Bacon Act was passed by Congress in 1931. It requires private contractors to pay prevailing wages to employees on all federally funded construction projects over $2,000. Most often, the prevailing wage was directly corresponds directly with the union wages. Now, prior to 1931, before this act, I just guess I would just say 1932. But prior to that, most of the contractors, most of the government contractors who secured government jobs, they were African American men. They were the majority, and for the most part, they were the builders. They were the guys who had the trade expertise. They built mostly everything. I mean, I have an uncle that was, he kind of go back to that era where he was taught by someone who actually taught him how to be a contractor. But I tell you, a good item, you can kind of go to these right here. I should be able to leave these in the link, but the Davis-Bacon Act and related acts, under these right here laws, the Department of Labor is responsible for determining prevailing wages. And what they did was, and here's some more guys in the game right here. This is Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell is a great economist. I think that you guys should go on and kind of read some of his information, but he talks about the differential impact on minimum wage, especially on African American workers. So, also another guy by the name of Walter Williams, and I don't have this. He talks about it as well. I really should play these YouTube videos, but I don't want to. I really I'm going to be the one that summarized these things, but I can say that he did make some good sense here. So let's just kind of look at this right here for just a second.
Is that there's the lowest skilled people,
Let me just
what
back
are
back.
the effects? And the skilled people earn higher living. But when you look at public policy, you should not look at the intentions behind public policy. You should ask the question, what are the effects? And you can see the effect of the minimum wage law if you put yourself in the place of an employer and you say, and you have to pay $7.25 an hour no matter whom you hire. Well, then, would you hire a worker who is so unfortunate so as to have skills that would only enable him to produce $3 or $4 worth of value per hour? Well, most employers will look at that as a losing economic proposition. That is to pay somebody $7.25 when that somebody could only produce $4 worth of value per hour. And so the effect of the minimum wage law is to discriminate against the employment of low-skilled people. And if you look at those are the people who are going to get the minimum wage. No, they're not going to get a job in the first place. That is that there's the lowest skilled people, the employer just will not hire them. Now, in the absence of a minimum wage law, if he could pay them $3 or $4 an hour, $5 an hour, well, they could be employed and they would learn something on the job. They get on-the-job training and ultimately be worth.
And this is exactly what happened. Let me just say this right here. This is what happened with a lot of, say, for instance, the teenagers during the time. They had the lower skill jobs. They couldn't even get jobs only because there was a requirement of minimum wage. So they had to, that hurt us because the issue that we had as the African Americans is that even when we were paid lower wages, we learned the skill to get better, to get a better job. Or we at least had a skill set, or we were learning. So sometimes what's more important than actually making wages is actually getting the skill. And I think the skill set is even more important. And so this is what he's kind of summarizing.
Or even more than that. So what the minimum wage law does, it cuts off the bottom rungs of the economic ladder. And if you look for the empirical evidence of this, you just look at our labor force and you see that unemployment rate among teenagers is the greatest, is the highest. And teenagers are low skilled because they lack the experience and maturity and other attributes of adults. And among that group are Black teenagers who not only share the handicaps of teenagers in general, but they share the additional handicaps of often going to rotten schools, getting fraudulent education, poor backgrounds, rotten neighborhoods, and early work experiences are very, very important for people who have this kind of background. Now, there's something else about the minimum wage law that nobody considers, and I point that out in a book I wrote in 1989. It's called South Africa's War Against Capitalism. And in that book,
I'm going to kind of stop it right there. He does go, I think that you guys this would be a good one to kind of go in and kind of look at some of the stuff that he talks about. But another economist would be Thomas Sowell. So Thomas Sowell does a lot of, him and actually Walter Williams, they actually do what they say, collabs together and kind of talk about the state of African Americans and what has happened. So we'll go ahead and take those screens out. But prior to that, so the first thing we can say, and I'm trying to go keep on my little task here, the DavisBacon Act was what created the minimum wage. Well, the minimum wage says that you have to pay these guys, you have to pay a fair wage. And let's just say it's $5 an hour. Well, a lot of the black contractors back then, they could pay their guys $2 or $3 an hour instead of $5 an hour. And they were securing all the government contracts because they was able to underbid everyone, of the white contractors during that time. And because of that, they got all the contracts. So when you created minimum wage, or you say, hey, you got to pay these guys this right here, what ended up happening at that point in time was they didn't get the contracts anymore. And so the one thing that they were not getting, since they weren't getting it, you had to pay them $5. And so they were picking the white contractors versus the black contractors. So at that particular time, they weren't even getting the jobs to where they can even get the skills. So one thing that we were getting that was more important than the wages of the job itself, the wages itself was the skill set. So then after that, say I'm thinking the 60s and the 70s, and guys, I remember when I was in high school, we actually had trades. I mean, we went and we actually had trades. So this is kind of what happened. Just kind of put a little, this right here is an article on why students need college instead of trade school. So there was a push, I think in it might have been in the 70s, 80s, maybe the 90s. And we were trying to get all the African-American kids, we were saying, hey, you got to go get, a job at, a white college job, wearing a shirt and tie, go to the office every day. Skip the trade. You don't need to get your hands dirty. We pushed that in African-American communities. And when we pushed that, this actually, along with that, so now you have one dynamic where we was losing all the government contractors. So you didn't have any more black contractors. The black contractors were dying off. But the few that was left, they had trades like wood shop, auto mechanic, HVAC, electrician, plumbing, and all these different trades. When they started doing this right here with the college stuff and start pushing the college stuff, because, guys, we looked at Martin Luther King. Everybody wanted to be like Martin Luther King. He had these degrees and he was a doctor. And even me, guys, when I left Montgomery to come to Birmingham, I actually wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a medical doctor because a medical doctor or a lawyer, that's all we knew. Coming from the country, we thought that those were the only people that actually made money. That's what we knew. That's what I was taught. That's what was indoctrinated to me at an early age as a child, as a kid. My parents, they were, hey man, my kid is so smart. And we push our kids to excel in academics. Nothing wrong with that, by no stretch of the imagination. Nothing wrong with being academically sound. But we didn't know that you can actually make money in trades. And if you look at today, these trade guys are winning. They're winning today because the average age of a person that's in most trades, on average, is about 47 years old. And you don't have enough of them out there today. They're far and few between. So, the scarcity is what drives their cost up. So their cost is, they can charge whatever they want to. A plumber can charge what he wants to now. Electricians, they can just, hey, what you're going to do is not a lot of them out there. There's demand for them because they're scarce. We didn't know this. And they told us, hey, go to college. My dad, when I was a kid, he told me, my dad worked in a plant. He worked hard, labor. He said, hey, man, I want you to get something up here. I don't want your hands to ever look like mine. His hands were rough, rugged. But I didn't know that you can actually make money. We didn't know that growing up. So we had a push. This right here was a push back in the day. For all of us, for the most part, go to college. I do apologize again for my German Shepherd. But you can kind of read this right here article as well. Well, I tell you. They just won't stop either. Maybe they come on in, and I figured they'd do that. But this article is a good article about what happened and why it happened, and especially like here in the Birmingham area. I mean, you go, they got rid of all the trades in most of the inner city high schools. I mean, you used to go somewhere like Jackson Hole, and you had trades galore, and they just kind of got rid of them. Now they're trying to get them all back. Now you have like colleges like, because they realize that there's a need for these guys in the trades. And now you have dual enrollments. You got the junior colleges, the trade schools now are going to the high schools doing dual enrollment now because they realize that, you got to get these kids at an early and early age. And that's something else that we have to start doing too, guys, is we're going to have to, and it's great that, the Home Builders Association is starting to address this right here point, because what's happening is, by the time these kids get in high school, they've already made their mind. They want to go to a 4-year college. They don't know what degree they want to go into. They just, hey, I just want to go to college because that's just what's regurgitated to us, just like a parent. Just, hey, this is what I want to do, and this is what we tell our kids, and this is what our kids tell us because they think that that's just the next best thing to do. And so, they all going to say they want to go to college. I think at this point we need to reach the kids at early and early ages. This is why we do now the Home Builders Association is doing what, we're trying to reach these kids at. We're trying to reach these kids when they're in, I don't know, before middle school. It's probably a good age to reach them. And I've even went out, guys. I've even went out to engage with some of the kids at the early age. I think you got to get them earlier now. Either you got to get, especially when you're dealing with African Americans. I think you have to get us earlier. You got to get us earlier in age. I'm sorry, my screen went out again. It just ain't gonna act right. I tell you, I gotta maybe just reboot my computer or something. Maybe. So you got to get the kids in an earlier age, is what I'm guessing. You may have to get them at an earlier age, or just go to the country. You go to the country and get some of these guys, some of these young African American guys who wants to get into the trade, if you want to get into that. But these are some of the things that, we're trying to get these. And, not only that, guys, we're going out here and we're trying to get these kids to engage in these are some of the pictures that we took with the Home Builders Association. But I need to make that smaller here. Once again, guys, maybe I get used to mine. So, like right here, we're trying to teach these kids and put tools in their hands at an early age, so that by the time they get to high school, they hadn't been, I would say, brainwashed to just say, hey, I want to go to college for 4 years. Now I do think that if you go into college and you're going into a STEM degree, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, I think that's some validity in that. I don't see a problem with that one. But if you're going in anything other than STEM, I think you kind of wasting your time. That's just my opinion. But this is what happened, guys. This is what happened to us. So I think you got to get the kids at an early age. Now I think that's going to be the game now. But this is what was pushed to us in our high schools. They told us, hey, don't go to trade schools. Those guys don't make no money. You need to go to college. You need to go to work with wear a suit and tie. So that happened. So now you got, if we look at it, guys, so we got the minimum wage law hurt us. That destroyed a lot of black contractors. Then the trade schools were almost just disappeared. So now even if you had black contractors, he couldn't go find black subcontractors to help him. Then one more nail in the coffin was the welfare state. A lot of people don't like me talking about this, but you got to look at the effects of the welfare state had on the African American family. Guys, in the I think immediately after emancipation of the slaves, Black people were married at a rate of about 90 something percent. And even prior to the welfare state, I think prior to the 70s, we were married more than anybody, Blacks, white. So we had a family unit, mom, dad, kids. It wasn't until after the welfare state, and you guys got to understand what the welfare, and you guys can look this stuff up. You can look up what they call the Monahan Report. Now, this is a good report. The Negro Family, the Case of the National Action. But with the Monahan Report, see, there were always something set up like a welfare state that was set up, not welfare state, but there was a welfare system set up for every race. It didn't matter whether you was Black, white, or it didn't matter what color you were. And with the welfare state, it gave benefits to women and kids. You know, the catch was you couldn't have a man around. You couldn't have the dad there. You couldn't have a father around. So it wasn't until they introduced it to the African American family that the African American women decided that they divorced their men, or they. This is what the Monahan Report did. This is what it provided data on this right here. But overwhelmingly, the African American woman, because she got benefits from the government, she replaced the government for her man. And she kicked, this is when the men were kicked out the household. And the Black women during that time were, you know, they became strong and independent, and they didn't need a man, and I can raise my son all by myself. So now you got that dynamic that was going on as well. So now what was happening is a lot of our boys were being socialized like their mothers, which in my opinion, I think it takes two people to raise a kid. That's just my own personal opinion. I think that it takes a mom and a dad. And I think especially with these boys, I think these boys need fathers so that they can, and I think you learn how to be a man by watching your father. I think there's a lot of cues that you watch, not necessarily him talking to you, but I think you learn a lot from your father. I'm not talking about a father that's just a piece of furniture in the house. He's been stepped on like furniture, and he kind of go in his dungeon in the cave in the basement, in his man cave, and he just kind of live in there and don't surface until it's time to eat. I'm not talking about that dad. I'm talking about a father that's a dominant figure in that household. And I'm not talking about somebody that's, you know, a lot of women like to say, oh, you talking about a controlling man. No, I'm talking about a man that stood his ground, protected his kids, and provided for his family. That dad. But it wasn't until the welfare state was introduced in the African American household, and when our households fell apart, guys. It fell apart. So now you got that dynamic as well. I mean, it was almost, this was an ugly sight to see. This, so now you got, let's just look at it. So now you have, and guys, this is, you know, it seems like I'm going to have to keep doing 2 and 3 parts. So now you have the minimum wage law hurt us. It hurt the African American contractor, because prior to that, you had the African Americans were the contractors. So then you had the destruction of the trade schools, and especially in the African American historically black high schools. They just disappeared. I mean, they're trying to get them back now. It's probably too late. I don't know if it's too late. It's hard to do now. Then you had the welfare state, which got rid of the father. And so now you don't have fathers that are putting these core ideologies inside of their son's head and grooming them to be a certain way. So that I'm telling you, man, that within itself, I believe, almost destroyed us. Those 3 nails alone got us to where we are right now. So you look right now, the current state of African American builders. This is where we are right now. We're at a state now where, because this generation of kids and people, they grew up and didn't even have fathers in the household. They never even seen a black man in a position of authority until they got to high school. In most cases, you may have seen a principal or something like that. So you never seen a black man, yet alone this. You never seen him in a position of authority. So now, where you think the respect goes? What do you think? What kind of respect you think that a kid who has been raised in a household and never seen a black man being in a position of authority, what do you think he think about black men? And this is why, you know, I've been building, I've had my contractor's license, my home builder's license for 20 plus years. And this is why when I tell somebody that I am a home builder, especially in the African American community, you know what they think I am? They think I'm a handyman. Hey man, you need to get in here and hang my ceiling fan. They don't know that I orchestrate and I contract subcontractors out to build the entire structure of a home. Because we are, as an African American contractor, we're not in existence. Don't get me wrong, there are a handful of African American contractors here in Birmingham. Don't get me wrong, we exist. But not in mass scales. We don't exist. We're not in mass numbers. So this is what I get. I get people say, hey man, you just a handyman. Or, the customers just expect me to be a failure. Now, or not to have my business in order. Now I have to say that, as African Americans, we have to do better. I know some black builders, African American builders. Yeah, we got to do better. We got to handle our business, man. And I see that is a big problem that we have, especially with the money side, the business side. We got to get better. So, yes, people don't respect you if they see one or two of us out here operating out of order. This is what happens. This is what makes the customer just expect for you to be a failure. I'll tell you another thing. When it comes down to respect, I have my own people, especially when you're dealing with African Americans, would ask me something that they would never ask builders of other races. Like, you got an insurance job and you ask me, hey man, hook me up with the, hook me up where I don't have to pay deductible. Or give me a price and give me a portion of it. Take the money, that's insurance fraud, by the way, guys. Give me a little bit of the money. The insurance won't give me this amount. You can write it up for this amount, and then you give me what's left over so I can make a little money too. Well, we would never fix our mouth to ask our counterparts that builds those questions. We just wouldn't do that. We only do that to each other. I'm talking about, African American customers. We give each other the expectation when it comes down to African American country. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't necessarily have to be built in the house. You can have a hot dog stand. I can go, I can buy a hot dog from an Asian guy who's charging you $2. And I can get the same hot dog as he have, and I can sell mine for $1.50, and they'll want to pay me $1. This is where we are. But they would go to that Asian guy and pay him full price. This is where we are. Now, like I said, guys, I know there's a lot of stuff that we got to do better, man. We got to invest in our business. But one thing that we have to invest in as an African American contractor, if we're going to go like from right now to moving forward in the future, guys, we're going to get into better. One thing we have to invest in, and we do not do this, and I don't know where this is coming from, is our knowledge. We have to invest in our knowledge of the business that we're in. you have to, like, now the Home Builders Association, not the Home Builders Association, but the Home Builders Licensing Board here in Alabama, they require you to get a certain amount of continuing education units per year. I think it's 6 per year. So they're telling you to go get a couple of hours so you can stay savvy in your trade. But I think we should do more than that. There should be no limitation. Guys, I sit down and I go through all kind, like sustainability, energy efficiency, and all those kind of things. Guys, I do that almost daily. So we should invest in our knowledge of the trade, the trade that we're in. And we don't, and I get it, sometimes we can get out here and get too busy. That's why we got to figure out ways to delegate, but you get so busy, you can't get out here and research. But we got to take money and put it into our knowledge growth and growing ourselves, getting smarter. I just don't know. I mean, now I think that for African American men in the construction, I mean, we're in some dire times, guys. I think our women actually get more respect. This is my own personal opinion. I think our women, because most of our kids, most of our people have grown up and had and seen women in the household of authority. So there's a little bit more respect. That's almost like, even in high school, I taught high school, and black females, they got a little bit more respect, in my opinion, than black males when engaging with a lot of students, especially with the younger black females students. I mean, you didn't get a whole lot of respect, and you can see it. But it got bad at the time. But this is kind of like the brief history, guys. I like to recap, so we kind of see the current state of the African American contractor, guys. Like I said, the minimum wage laws that did damage to it. That took us out the game. And then what took the subcontractors out the game was the trade schools. Just getting rid of all the trade schools in the historical black schools. Then you turn around and now you got that out the way. So now you don't have fathers and you don't have anybody that can train the guys to the next level. They were taken out. And this is why we are where we are today. I'm doing my best. I teach classes over at Lawson State Community College, trying to grow the trades, get people to learn, and try to get them to see, number one, that they can do well in this game if they jump in it. Now, everybody's not going to be a home builder like myself, I say that sub-trades is the way to go. If it were me, I would jump in one or two of the sub-trades. I'd master them. I was 19, 20, 21. I'd master a couple of sub-trades. Now I would invest in my business. I would grow my business. Okay. All right, guys, that's it. Like, share, subscribe. You guys have a good one. They're calling me now. You have a good one.